Welcome to Nightmare Ghostly Echoes, where shadows whisper terrifying tales. Top 9 true horror stories, creepy, about the invisible world. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to join our eerie community, and ring the bell to hear new creepy stories every night at 8 p.m. The first story, The Swimmer in the Moonlit Pond. The house stood silent, a sprawling mansion nestled in an upscale neighborhood where wealth carved out wide, lonely properties. At 21, I was a college student, home for the summer, alone in my parents' lavish retreat by a small pond. The pond was a murky mirror, reflecting the town park across its glassy surface, its edges fringed with reeds and secrets. My parents, always jetting between their multiple homes, left me to rattle around in this empty palace. It was a random weekday night in July, the air thick with summer heat, the kind that clings to your skin like a second shadow. I lounged in the sunroom, my favorite spot, where floor-to-ceiling windows opened to the backyard, letting in a cool breeze. The TV flickered with some forgettable show, its glow painting the room in soft blues. I sprawled on the corner of the couch, closest to the window, sipping a soda, when a sound broke the monotony, splashing, rhythmic and heavy, coming from the pond. At first, I dismissed it. Geese and ducks often bickered in the water, their fights a noisy but familiar symphony. But the splashing didn't stop. It grew louder, more deliberate, like someone wading through the shallows. Curiosity tugged at me. I muted the TV, the sudden silence amplifying the night's pulse, crickets, a distant dog barking, and that relentless splashing. I pressed my ear to the window, the glass cool against my cheek. The sound wasn't right. It wasn't the frantic flap of wings or the light patter of webbed feet. It was heavy, human, each splash punctuated by a low, eerie hum, a man's voice, tuneless and haunting. My stomach twisted. The pond was private property, each house owning a slice of its murky depths. Whoever was out there was trespassing. I hesitated, then slid open the sunroom door, stepping onto the wooden deck. The night was pitch black, the moon a pale sickle casting faint silver across the yard. The splashing continued, now joined by that hum, growing clearer, like a lullaby twisted into something sinister. "Hello?" I called, my voice swallowed by the dark. No answer, just the splash, splash, splash. I darted back inside, heart thumping, and flicked on the deck lights. A harsh glow spilled across the yard, illuminating the pond's edge. The splashing stopped instantly. The humming ceased. Silence pressed down, heavy and unnatural. I stood frozen, staring into the now still water. Had they seen the light? Were they hiding? My mind raced. Maybe a neighbor, drunk or confused, decided to take a midnight swim, but no one swam in the pond. It was too murky, too shallow, its bottom a tangle of weeds and secrets. I shook my head, trying to laugh it off. Probably nothing. I stepped back inside, locked the door, and texted my brother, who was away at college. "Heard someone swimming in the pond. Creepy as hell." No reply. Typical. I sank back onto the couch, the TV still muted, its light flickering across the room. I tried to focus on the show, but my ears strained for any sound. The night felt heavier now, the breeze through the open windows carrying a chill that hadn't been there before. Then a creak, sharp, deliberate, from the deck. My heart lurched. I fumbled for the remote, my fingers clumsy, and killed the TV. The room plunged into darkness, silence roaring in my ears. That's when I heard it, breathing, heavy and ragged, right outside the window. I dropped to the couch, flattening myself against the cushions, my pulse hammering. The breathing was close, too close, inches from the glass. I squeezed my eyes shut, praying it was my imagination, a trick of the night. Then a voice, deep, gravelly, slicing through the silence. "I see you." My blood turned to ice. My mind screamed, "Run, hide, do something." But my body wouldn't move. I clutched the couch, breath shallow, waiting for the next sound. Seconds stretched into eternity. Then, footsteps, bare, wet, slapping against the deck, fading into the night. I stayed there, paralyzed, until the silence became unbearable. Minutes later, I forced myself up, legs trembling, and checked every door. Locked, all locked. I grabbed my phone, texting my family group chat. "Someone's outside," said, "I see you," freaking out. My dad replied, "Turn on the backyard lights. Check it out. Be the man of the house." I cursed under my breath. Easy for him to say, safe in another city. I crept to the sunroom, peering through the window. The deck was empty, the pond still under the moonlight. I flicked on the lights again, the glow revealing something I hadn't noticed before. Wet footprints, glistening on the wood, unmistakably human, barefoot, leading from the pond to the edge of the deck. My stomach churned. I grabbed a kitchen knife, its weight cold and reassuring, and stepped outside. The air was thick, oppressive, the night unnaturally quiet. I followed the footprints, my flashlight beam trembling. They stopped at the deck's edge, where the wood dropped to the grass below. I leaned over, shining the light down, half expecting nothing. But there, just below the edge, a pair of eyes gleamed back, wide, unblinking, set in a pale forehead barely visible above the deck's lip. My breath caught. The eyes locked onto mine, unyielding, then vanished as the figure ducked away, rustling through the grass toward the pond. I stumbled back, heart pounding, and dialed 911. The police arrived 20 minutes later, their flashlights sweeping the yard. They found nothing, no figure, no tracks beyond the footprints, now drying in the warm night air. They asked about enemies, neighbors, grudges. I shook my head, numb. "Just some creep maybe," I said, but the words felt hollow. They did a quick sweep of the property and left, advising me to lock up tight. That night I closed every window, cranked the air conditioning, and slept with the knife under my pillow. The next morning, sunlight flooded the house, washing away some of the fear. I checked the pond, calm, ordinary, no signs of disturbance. My brother finally texted back, "Dude, you okay? That's messed up." I didn't reply. I didn't know how to explain the dread that lingered, the feeling that those eyes were still watching, waiting. Weeks passed. The pond stayed quiet, the deck clean of footprints. But every night, as I sat in the sunroom, I couldn't shake the sense that something was out there, just beyond the light, humming softly, waiting for me to step into the dark. Story 2. The Whisper in the Empty Lot. The night was heavy, the kind of late summer darkness that presses against your skin, thick with humidity and silence. I lived in a quiet suburb on the edge of town where houses sprawled far apart, separated by patches of untamed land. My routine was simple: 3 walks a day with my dog, Max, a scruffy mutt who'd rather sniff every blade of grass than hurry home. Morning, afternoon, and night, we'd take the same path, down the driveway, through the cul-de-sac, and into the gravel lot that served as overflow parking for the nearby condo complex. It was a mundane ritual, one I'd done for years without incident, until that night. It was past midnight, later than usual. I'd been up scrolling through my phone, music playing softly through one earbud, a habit I'd picked up to stay alert. The cul-de-sac was empty, the condo complex dark, its residents long asleep. Max trotted ahead, his leash slack, nose to the ground. The gravel lot stretched before us, a gray expanse dotted with weeds, flanked by a chain-link fence and a line of overgrown bushes. Beyond it, a vacant lot lay abandoned, its skeletal remains of a failed construction project jutting from the earth like forgotten bones. I'd never thought much of it, just a patch of dirt and debris, ignored by everyone. As we neared the lot, a sound cut through the music in my earbud. It was faint, muffled, like a voice carried on the wind. I paused, pulling the earbud out, and stood still. Max froze too, his ears perked, head tilted toward the vacant lot. The air was still, no breeze to carry stray sounds. Then it came again, a voice, small and plaintive, like a child's. "Help." My skin prickled. I scanned the lot, my flashlight beam slicing through the darkness. Nothing but dirt, broken concrete, and rusted rebar. Max whined softly, his tail low. "Hello?" I called, my voice sounding too loud in the quiet night. No answer. Just that single word again, clearer now. "Help." It came from the left, near the fence where the bushes grew thick. I told myself it was nothing. A kid playing a prank, maybe, or someone's TV left on too loud. But the voice didn't sound right. It was flat, emotionless, like a recording looped over and over. Max growled, a low rumble I rarely heard from him. I tugged his leash, ready to turn back, but curiosity, or stupidity, pulled me forward. I stepped closer to the fence, flashlight sweeping the shadows. The voice came again, sharper, closer. "Help!" My heart thudded. The lot was empty. No cars, no people. The condos were too far for sound to carry this clearly. I crouched, shining the light under the bushes. Nothing, just dirt and leaves. Max yanked at the leash, his growls louder now, his body tense. I stood, ready to leave, when the voice shifted. It wasn't just help anymore. It was a whisper, soft and deliberate. "Help me, please." I froze. The voice wasn't coming from the bushes anymore. It was behind me. I spun, flashlight shaking, but the lot was still empty. Max barked, sharp and frantic, pulling toward the vacant lot. Against my better judgment, I followed, stepping over the low fence into the abandoned site. The ground was uneven, littered with debris. The voice grew louder, more insistent, now a chorus of whispers overlapping. "Help me, help me, help me." I stopped dead. The whispers weren't coming from one spot. They were everywhere, circling me, rising from the ground, the air, the shadows. Max whimpered, pressing against my leg. My flashlight flickered, its beam dimming for a moment. I shook it, cursing, and when the light steadied, I saw something, or thought I did. A shape, small and hunched, at the edge of the lot, near a pile of broken concrete. It was too dark to make out details, but it looked like a child, head bowed, motionless. "Hey!" I shouted, my voice cracking. "Are you okay?" The figure didn't move. The whisper stopped, leaving a silence so thick it felt like a weight. Max growled again, his hackles raised. I took a step closer, then another, the gravel crunching under my boots. The figure shifted just slightly, its head tilting as if listening. Then, in a blink, it was gone. My breath caught. I swung the flashlight around, heart pounding. The lot was empty again. No figure, no sound, just Max's low growls and the distant hum of crickets. I backed away, tugging Max with me, my eyes darting to every shadow. As we crossed back over the fence, the whisper started again, fainter now, but unmistakable. "Help me. Don't leave." I ran, Max sprinting beside me, his leash taut. We didn't stop until we were back in the house, the door locked behind us. I stood there, panting, my hands shaking as I checked every window, every lock. Max stayed close, his eyes fixed on the door. I texted my mom, telling her what happened, but she brushed it off. Probably just kids messing around. "Don't worry." But I knew it wasn't kids. That voice wasn't human. It was too cold, too empty, like something mimicking life but not quite getting it right. The next day, I avoided the lot. I took Max on a different route, sticking to well-lit streets. But curiosity gnawed at me. I looked up the vacant lot online, digging through old news articles. What I found chilled me. 10 years ago, a construction crew had abandoned the site after a series of accidents. Workers injured, equipment failing, and one death, a young boy who'd wandered onto the site and fallen into a pit. The article mentioned strange reports from workers, whispers, shadows, and a child's voice calling for help. The project was scrapped, the lot left untouched. That night, I couldn't sleep. The whispers echoed in my mind, relentless, pleading. I kept Max close, his warmth a small comfort. Around 2 a.m., I heard it again, faint, outside my window. "Help me." I didn't look. I didn't move. I just pulled the blind shut and turned up the TV, drowning out the sound. Weeks later, I moved out, unable to shake the feeling that something was still out there, watching, waiting. The lot remains empty, a patch of cursed earth no one dares touch. And sometimes, when the night is too quiet, I swear I still hear that voice, calling from the dark. Story 3. The Passage in the Wall. The house was a fortress of solitude, tucked deep in a wooded valley where the trees stood like silent sentinels, their branches clawing at the sky. I was 10 years old, a skinny kid with a wild imagination, living in this old, creaky place with my parents and little sister, Ellie. The house was surrounded by forest on 3 sides, a dense tangle of pines and oaks that swallowed the nearest neighbors a half-mile away. My bedroom, perched in the back corner of the 2nd floor, felt like the edge of the world. 2 walls of windows looked out onto the woods, their shadows dancing across my room at night, turning every rustle into a monster. I was scared of the dark, always had been, but at 10, I was too old to admit it. My only defense was a cheap nightlight, a plastic star-shaped thing that glowed red, casting a warm, bloody hue across my bed. I'd fall asleep to its hum, comforted by its steady light. But that summer, something changed. It started small, so small I barely noticed. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, groggy, to find the nightlight glowing blue instead of red. I'd blink, rub my eyes, and it'd be red again. Like nothing happened. I told myself it was a glitch, like Dad said when the TV fritzed out. But it kept happening. Blue, green, sometimes flickering like a dying candle. One night, I woke to darkness. The nightlight was off, unplugged, its cord dangling on the floor. My heart raced. I fumbled for the lamp on my nightstand, its weak light barely pushing back the shadows. The room felt wrong, too quiet, like the air was holding its breath. I crept to the outlet, plugged the nightlight back in, and it flared red, steady as ever. I told Mom the next morning, but she laughed it off. "You're dreaming, Tommy," she said, ruffling my hair. "Focus on school, not ghosts." Dad was worse. He said I was too old for a nightlight anyway, his voice sharp with impatience. A week later, the nightlight was gone. Not unplugged, gone. I tore my room apart, checking under the bed, behind the dresser, even in the closet. A cramped space stuffed with old toys and posters of superheroes. Nothing. I confronted my parents, my voice shaking with anger. "You took it, didn't you?" I accused. They exchanged a look, the kind adults give when they think you're being ridiculous. "Tommy, we didn't touch your nightlight," Dad said, his tone final. "Maybe it's time to grow up." I didn't believe them. They were lying, I was sure of it, trying to force me to face the dark. But the dark wasn't empty anymore. That night I lay in bed, the room pitch black, the windows framing the forest silhouette. A sound came, soft, like leaves brushing against each other. But it wasn't from outside. It was closer, inside, from the closet. I froze, my blanket pulled tight to my chin, listening. Rustle, rustle, like someone shifting, breathing, waiting. I didn't sleep. The next morning I told my parents, my voice small. "There's something in my closet," I whispered. Dad rolled his eyes, marched upstairs, and yanked open the closet door. "See? Nothing but junk," he said, kicking a pile of toys. Mom hugged me, but her smile was tight. "Just your imagination, sweetie." The noises didn't stop. Every night, I'd wake to that rustling, sometimes faint, sometimes loud, like fingers clawing through fabric. I started sleeping with the lamp on, its light a weak shield against the dark. Ellie, only 6, started asking why I looked so tired. I didn't tell her. I didn't want to scare her, but the fear was eating me alive. One night, it wasn't just rustling. I woke to a thud, heavy and deliberate, like something falling in the closet. My lamp was off, though I swore I'd left it on. The room was dark, the window showing only the black outline of trees. I held my breath, listening. The rustling came again, faster, closer, followed by a low, guttural sound, like a growl, but not an animal. It was human, or something trying to be. I bolted from bed, running to my parents' room, tears streaming down my face. "There's something in my room," I sobbed. Dad groaned, but Mom followed me upstairs, her flashlight beam cutting through the dark. She opened the closet, shining the light inside. "Tommy, it's empty," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "Just toys and posters." I didn't believe her. The next night I stayed awake, clutching a baseball bat I'd found in the garage. The rustling started again, louder, more insistent. I crept to the closet, my heart pounding so hard I thought it had burst. I yanked the door open, bat raised, but the closet was empty, except for one thing. A poster, a faded Superman print, was peeling at the corner, revealing a sliver of darkness behind it. I dropped the bat, my hands trembling, and tore the poster down. Behind it was a hole, jagged and deep, carved into the wall. It was big enough for a person to crawl through, its edges rough, like it had been clawed out. I shone my flashlight inside, the beam swallowed by a tunnel that stretched into darkness. The air smelled wrong, damp, sour, like something rotting. I screamed for my parents. Dad stormed upstairs, his face red with anger. "What now, Tommy?" he snapped, but when he saw the hole, his jaw dropped. Mom gasped, clutching Ellie, who'd wandered up behind us. Dad grabbed the flashlight, shining it into the tunnel. It went deeper than it should have, curving out of sight. "Stay here," he ordered, his voice shaking, and ran outside to check the house's exterior. He came back pale, his hands dirty. "There's a hole in the ground right by the foundation," he said. "It leads into the woods." Mom started crying, pulling us close. That night, we packed bags and drove to my aunt's house, an hour away. Dad called the police, who found the tunnel, but no one inside. They said it looked old, maybe from years ago, but couldn't explain why it led to my room. We never went back. The house was sold. The new owners warned about the tunnel, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something had been in there watching me, waiting. Years later, I found an old article about our town, a missing hiker, last seen near our woods decades ago. The locals whispered about a drifter, a man who lived in the forest, slipping into houses through hidden paths. No one ever caught him. Sometimes in the dark, I still hear that rustling, faint but unmistakable, like something moving just out of sight. Story 4. The Shadows Beneath the Bridge. Berlin was a city of contrasts, vibrant by day, alive with music and laughter, but cold and unforgiving at night. I was 22, a college senior on a gap year, chasing some vague notion of self-discovery in a place I barely understood. My German was shaky, my savings shakier, and my knack for bad decisions was unmatched. That night, I'd stayed too long at a dive bar in Kreuzberg, a place called Schattenkeller, all dim lights and sticky floors. I'd been nursing cheap beers, trying to forget the mess of my life back home. Family drama, fading friendships, and a future I couldn't picture. When I reached for my keys to head back to my rented apartment, they were gone. Lost, probably slipped from my pocket in the bar's chaos. It was past 2 a.m., the streets slick with rain, and my apartment was locked tight. No landlord to call at this hour, no spare key. I wandered, half drunk, the city's pulse fading as I left the neon glow of Kreuzberg behind. The rain grew heavier, soaking through my jacket, and desperation set in. I needed shelter, somewhere to wait out the night. That's when I saw the bridge, a concrete behemoth spanning the Spree River, its underbelly a shadowed maze of pillars and graffiti. It looked dry enough, a temporary refuge. I didn't think twice. Under the bridge, the air was damp, heavy with the smell of river water and decay. The city's hum was muted here, replaced by the steady drip of rainwater and the distant rumble of a train. I found a corner near a pillar, its surface tagged with fading murals of skulls and cryptic words. I sank to the ground, pulling my jacket tight, and tried to sleep. Max, my imaginary companion from home, a dog I'd left with my parents, would have hated this place. Too cold, too strange. I was drifting off when voices jolted me awake. Low, urgent, speaking rapid German I couldn't fully catch. I froze, peering into the darkness. Across the river, under the bridge's opposite side, 5 figures stood in a loose circle. Their silhouettes were sharp against the faint glow of a street lamp, one of them pacing, another gesturing with a duffel bag. A small boat bobbed nearby, tethered to a rusted pole. I squinted, my pulse quickening. This wasn't a late-night chat. It was a deal. Drugs, money, something illegal. I should have left, should have crept away and found another spot, but I was drunk, tired, and stupidly curious. I stayed low, watching as briefcases changed hands, the men's voices rising, then falling to whispers. One word caught my ear. Where? Merchandise. My German wasn't great, but I knew enough to guess they weren't trading baseball cards. Then a shout, sharp, angry. One man, taller than the others, pulled something from his jacket. The glint of metal in the dim light stopped my breath. A gun. The group froze, the air electric with tension. The man with the gun barked something, pointing at another figure, who raised his hands, pleading in rapid German. The others stepped back, their movements jerky like predators circling prey. I needed to move, now. I shifted, my foot scraping against the gravel. The sound was small, but in the silence, it was deafening. 5 heads turned toward me, their faces hidden in shadow. "Where is Da?" one shouted. "Who's there?" My heart slammed against my ribs. I scrambled to my feet, slipping on the wet ground, and ran. The rain stung my face, the bridge's pillars blurring past as I sprinted toward the street. Shouts echoed behind me, heavy footsteps pounding the pavement. I didn't look back. I couldn't. The city was a labyrinth, its alleys twisting and dark, but I ran blindly, my lungs burning, the alcohol slowing my legs. I ducked into a narrow street, pressing myself against a brick wall, gasping for air. The footsteps faded, but the air felt wrong, heavy, like something was watching. I glanced back, expecting to see the men, but instead, a shadow moved at the alley's mouth. Not a man, not quite. It was tall, too tall, its outline jagged, like it was made of smoke. My flashlight, pulled from my pocket, flickered as I aimed it. The shadow vanished, but a low hum filled the air, like the one I'd heard under the bridge, only closer, inside my head. I ran again, my shoes slapping wet pavement, until I stumbled into a residential area. A lit window glowed ahead. A house, ordinary, safe. I banged on the door, my voice hoarse. "Please, let me in." An older woman answered, her face wary but kind. I begged to use her phone, called the police, and spilled everything. The bridge, the deal, the gun, the shadow. The cops arrived, took my statement, and drove me to the bridge. It was empty. No men, no boat, no bags. Just the rain and the hum, faint now, lingering in my ears. The police searched the area, found nothing, and wrote it off as a drunken hallucination. But I knew what I saw. Days later, I read about that bridge online. A spot notorious for shady deals, but also for strange sightings, shadows that moved without bodies, voices in the dark. Locals called it Schottenbrücke, the Shadow Bridge, cursed since a worker died during its construction decades ago. I left Berlin soon after, my keys replaced, my nerves shot. I never went near that bridge again, but the hum follows me, faint and persistent, in quiet moments. And sometimes in the dark, I see that shadow, waiting at the edge of my vision, just out of reach. Story 5, The Figure in the Mirror. The high school was a relic, a squat brick building on the edge of a sleepy Ohio town, its halls lined with chipped lockers and faded posters. I was 17, a junior, navigating the chaos of teenage life with my best friend Sarah by my side. That Friday afternoon, the school was buzzing with the usual end-of-week energy, kids laughing, teachers shouting, the promise of freedom just hours away. But home wasn't a refuge for me. My foster parents were cold, their house a place of rules and silence, so I lingered at school, dreading the walk back. Sarah and I were cutting through the science wing, her voice a constant stream of chatter about some guy she liked. I was barely listening, my mind tangled in my own problems. Homework I hadn't done, the fight with my foster mom that morning. As we passed the cafeteria, a sudden urge hit me. "I need the bathroom," I said, interrupting Sarah's monologue. She rolled her eyes but nodded. "I'll wait out here," she said, leaning against the wall, scrolling her phone. The bathroom was on the first floor, tucked at the end of a quiet hallway. It was the one everyone used, always packed with girls fixing their makeup or gossiping. But when I pushed open the heavy door, the room was empty. No chatter, no clatter of bags, just the hum of fluorescent lights and the faint drip of a leaky faucet. I frowned, the silence unsettling, but shrugged it off. It was late in the day. Maybe everyone was already gone. I chose the middle stall, the one with the least graffiti, and locked the door behind me. The air was cool, tinged with the sharp scent of bleach. I sat, staring at the scribbled words on the stall walls. Random quotes, hearts with initials, complaints about teachers. Then, a sound broke the silence. The bathroom door creaked open, slow and deliberate, followed by a soft thud as it closed. I froze, listening. No footsteps, no voices, just the drip of the faucet. "Sarah?" I called, my voice echoing off the tiles. No answer. I waited, expecting the sound of someone entering a stall or turning on a sink. Nothing. The silence felt heavy, like the room was holding its breath. I stood, buttoning my jeans, and scanned the walls again, trying to distract myself. The door creaked again, sharper this time, like someone had pushed it open and let it swing shut. I held my breath, waiting for footsteps. Still nothing. I unlocked the stall, my heart beating a little faster, and stepped out. The bathroom was empty, the mirrors reflecting only the flickering lights and rows of stalls. I checked under the doors. No feet, no shadows. I shook my head, telling myself it was just the old building settling. I walked to the sink, splashing cold water on my face, the mirror fogging slightly from my breath. That's when I noticed it. A faint smudge on the glass, like a handprint, but too small, too delicate, like a child's. I stepped back, my skin prickling. The smudge wasn't there a second ago. I wiped the mirror with my sleeve, but it didn't budge. The air grew colder, the fluorescent hum louder, like a swarm of insects. I turned to leave, my sneakers squeaking on the tile, when the door creaked again, this time without opening. I spun around, my eyes darting to the mirror. For a split second, I saw it. A figure, tall and thin, standing behind me in the reflection, its face obscured, like a shadow with no source. I gasped, whipping around, but the bathroom was still empty. My heart hammered, my breath shallow. I bolted for the door, yanking it open, and nearly crashed into Sarah. She looked up from her phone, her face pale, eyes wide. "What the hell was that?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "What?" I snapped, my nerves frayed. "There was someone in there with you," she said, pointing at the bathroom. "I came in to check on you, and I saw it in the mirror. Someone standing right behind you in the stall, like inches away." I felt the blood drain from my face. "No one was in there," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "I was alone." Sarah shook her head, her eyes locked on mine. "I'm not messing with you, Jess. I saw it. Their shoes were touching yours, that's how close they were. I got out as fast as I could." I grabbed her arm, pulling her down the hall, away from the bathroom. "You're freaking me out," I said, but my voice cracked. I told her about the door creaking, the silence, the smudge on the mirror. Her face grew paler with every word. "We need to tell someone," she said. "We found Ms. Carter, the school counselor, in her office." She listened, her expression skeptical, but agreed to check the bathroom. It was empty, just as I'd left it, the smudge still on the mirror. "Probably just kids playing a prank," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. Sarah wasn't buying it. "I know what I saw," she insisted, her hands shaking. "That night I couldn't sleep. The image of that figure in the mirror haunted me. Its faceless presence burned into my mind. I started digging online, searching for anything about our school. What I found made my stomach churn. 20 years ago, a girl had gone missing from the school, a freshman, barely 14, last seen near the first floor bathroom. Rumors swirled that she'd been bullied, driven to despair, and some said she'd never left the school. Students reported strange things over the years. Doors creaking, mirrors fogging, whispers in empty rooms. The next day, Sarah and I avoided the bathroom. We stuck to the newer wing, but the feeling followed me, like eyes on the back of my neck. During last period, I had to go. I tried to hold it, but there was no choice. I went to a different bathroom, one on the second floor, but as I washed my hands, the mirror flickered. Not the lights, the reflection itself, like it was rippling. And there, behind me, was the figure again, closer this time, its outline sharper, its head tilted as if watching. I ran, not looking back, not stopping until I was outside, the cold air stinging my lungs. Sarah found me, her face ashen. "It happened again, didn't it?" she asked. I nodded, unable to speak. We never went back to that bathroom. I graduated, moved away, but the memory lingers. Sometimes in quiet moments, I catch my reflection in a mirror and hold my breath, waiting for that figure to appear, its shadow waiting just behind me. Story 6. The Messages in the Night. The house was small, a single-story rental on the outskirts of a quiet Oregon town, its faded blue paint peeling under the weight of years. I was 24, fresh out of college, starting my first real job as a graphic designer at a local print shop. The house was perfect for me. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, just enough space to feel independent without being overwhelming. My landlord, Ellen, was a kind older woman who lived across town, always quick to answer my calls about leaky pipes or creaky floors. She'd rented to me because she preferred a female tenant, someone trustworthy, she said. I felt safe here, or at least I did for the first few weeks. It started on a Tuesday night in October, the air crisp with the first hints of autumn. I'd come home late from work, exhausted, and was heating up leftovers in the kitchen when a sharp knock rattled the front door. 3 quick raps, loud and insistent. I froze, fork in hand, my heart skipping a beat. It was past 9 p.m. No one should be knocking. I set the fork down, wiped my hands, and crept to the door. There was no peephole, just a small window covered by a curtain. I called out, "Who's there?" No answer. The silence stretched, heavy and unnerving. I parted the curtain slightly, peering into the dark porch. Empty. Just the faint glow of the street lamp and the rustle of leaves skittering across the driveway. I opened the door cautiously, the hinges creaking. Nothing. No one. I stepped onto the porch, my breath fogging in the cool air, and scanned the yard. The street was quiet, the neighboring houses dark. I was about to go back inside when I saw it. A small piece of paper taped to the storm door, fluttering in the breeze. I pulled it off, my fingers brushing the cold glass. In neat, blocky handwriting it read, "You're beautiful tonight." My stomach twisted. It wasn't signed, no name, no clue who left it. I crumpled the note, tossing it into the trash, and locked the door, double-checking the deadbolt. Probably a prank, I told myself. Kids, maybe, or a creepy neighbor with too much time. I tried to laugh it off, but sleep came hard that night, the note's words echoing in my mind. The next morning I checked the door before leaving for work. Another note, same blocky handwriting, taped to the glass. "I saw you in the window." My breath caught. I hadn't been near the window last night, not that I remembered. I took a photo of the note, my hands trembling, and sent it to my parents. My dad, a retired cop, called immediately. "Don't open the door at night," he said, his voice calm but firm. "If it happens again, call the police. I'll come up if it gets worse." I nodded, though he couldn't see, and threw the note away, trying to shake the unease. That night I was on edge, jumping at every creak of the house. I kept the lights low, the curtains drawn, and avoided the windows. Around 8 p.m., another knock. 3 raps, just like before. I didn't move, didn't speak, just stood in the kitchen, clutching my phone. The silence was deafening, broken only by the hum of the fridge. I waited, heart pounding, but no more knocks came. I crept to the door, listening. Nothing. I didn't dare open it. Morning revealed another note. "I like watching you sleep." My blood ran cold. This wasn't a prank. Someone was watching me, someone who knew I was alone. I called Ellen, my voice shaking as I told her about the notes. She sounded shocked, insisting she'd never had issues with the house or any strange men. "I'm in a long-term relationship," she said, as if that explained anything. I sent her the photo of the note, but her response was vague, promising to check with neighbors. Desperate to feel in control, I taped a note of my own to the door that evening. "If you're looking for Ellen, she doesn't live here. This is my house. Stop this or I'll call the police." I hoped it would end things, that the creep would realize they had the wrong person. I went to bed, the lights on, a kitchen knife on my nightstand. No knocks came that night, and for a moment I thought I'd won. But the next morning my note was gone. In its place was a new one, the handwriting sharper, angrier. "I'm not looking for Ellen. I'm looking for you, Emily. My name." They knew my name. My knees buckled, and I sank to the porch, the note clutched in my hand. I called my dad, sobbing, and sent him the photo. "I'm coming up," he said, no hesitation. "Don't stay there alone tonight." I spent the day at work in a daze, jumping at every noise, every shadow. My co-worker Mark noticed, but I brushed him off, not wanting to explain. When I got home, Dad was there, his old police duffel bag on the couch. He hugged me, his face grim. "We're calling the police," he said. We waited until dusk, hoping to catch the stalker in the act. The officer who arrived took my statement, examined the notes, and patrolled the property. "Could be a prank," he said, but his eyes lingered on the latest note. "We'll keep an eye out." Dad stayed on the porch that night, a flashlight in one hand, his old service pistol in the other. I tried to sleep, but every creak made me flinch. Around midnight I heard it, Not a knock, but a whisper, faint and guttural, from outside my bedroom window. "Emily." My heart stopped. I ran to the living room, where Dad was already on his feet, flashlight sweeping the yard. "Stay inside," he ordered, stepping out. He found nothing. No footprints, no figure, just the empty night. But the air felt wrong, heavy, like something was watching from the shadows. The next day, I started packing. Ellen, shaken, waived my lease penalties, and I moved to a new apartment across town. The notes stopped, the knocks never returned, but I couldn't shake the feeling that whoever, or whatever, wrote those notes was still out there. Weeks later, I dug into the house's history. An old article mentioned a tenant from a decade ago, a young woman who'd vanished after reporting a stalker. Neighbors had heard whispers, seen shadows, but no one was ever caught. The house sat empty for years before Ellen bought it. Sometimes, when I pass a window at night, I catch a glimpse of movement in the reflection, and I hear that whisper again. "Emily." Story 7. The Lure in the Dark. The California sun had long set, leaving the streets of Santa Cruz bathed in a cool coastal fog. I was 20, a sophomore at UC Santa Cruz, drowning in the chaos of frat parties, midterms, and a social scene that felt like a revolving door of hookups and hangovers. I'd grown tired of the same faces at the same bars, the sorority girls who seemed to know every guy in every house. So I turned to Tinder, hoping for something new, something real. My profile was basic, some surf photos, a bio about loving the beach, nothing special. But when I matched with Mia, it felt different. Her profile was sparse, just a few photos of her smiling in dimly lit bars, her dark eyes sharp and inviting. We texted for days, her messages flirty but clever, hinting at a shared love for late-night adventures and dive bars. We planned to meet at the Rusty Anchor, a grungy spot near the boardwalk with cheap drinks and pool tables. I got there early, claiming a table in the back, the clack of billiard balls mixing with the hum of classic rock. I was nervous, sipping a beer to calm my nerves, checking my phone every minute. An hour passed, and I started to think I'd been stood up. Just as I was about to leave, my phone buzzed. A message from Mia. "Just parked. Be there in 2. She walked in, and my breath caught. She was striking. Long, dark hair, a leather jacket, and a smile that felt like a secret. "Sorry I'm late," she said, her voice low, almost smoky. "Traffic was a nightmare." We ordered drinks, played a few rounds of pool, and talked like we'd known each other forever. She was a junior, she said, studying art, with a wicked sense of humor and a love for whiskey. I was hooked, matching her drink for drink, the room spinning slightly as the night wore on. At some point, she leaned close, her breath warm against my ear. "Want to see something cool?" she asked, her eyes glinting. "My place isn't far. I've got a collection of vintage records you'd love." I hesitated, the alcohol dulling my instincts, but her smile was disarming. "Sure," I said, grinning like an idiot. We took an Uber, the city blurring past, the fog thicker now, swallowing the streetlights. Her apartment was in a rougher part of town, a low-rise building with cracked paint and flickering hallway lights. Red flags should have screamed in my head, but I was too drunk, too caught up in her charm. She unlocked the door, stepping aside. "After you," she said, her voice teasing. I stepped inside, and the door clicked shut behind me. The room was pitch black, the air stale, heavy with the scent of mold and something metallic. I turned to ask her to flip on a light, but before I could speak, the room flared with harsh fluorescent light. Mia was gone. In her place stood 3 men, 2 behind me, blocking the door, and 1 in front, his bulk filling the space. They were rough, tattooed, their faces hard and unreadable. The one in front, bald with a scar across his cheek, stared at me, his eyes cold. "Jake Miller," he said, my name sounding like a threat. "Born June 12, 2003. UC Santa Cruz, Pike Fraternity." My stomach dropped. How did he know me? He held up my phone, which I'd handed to Mia during our pool game, to show her a photo. "You sent some interesting pictures tonight," he said, a smirk twisting his face. My mind raced back to the bar. Mia had asked for my Instagram, then sent me a string of explicit photos. Photos I'd stupidly reciprocated, too drunk to think twice. "She's 17, the man said, his voice flat. "You're in deep trouble, kid. My knees buckled. "That's not true," I stammered, but my voice sounded weak, hollow. The room felt smaller, the air thicker, like it was pressing against my chest. The two men behind me stepped closer, their hands flexing, ready to grab me. The leader leaned in, his breath sour. "You're gonna do what we say, or those photos go public. You'll be done. School, friends, future." "What do you want?" I managed, my throat dry. "You're connected," he said. "Frat boy, lots of friends. You're gonna move product for us. Pills, powder, whatever we give you. Start with your little Pike brothers." He tossed a piece of paper at me. "Write down names, numbers, addresses, everyone you know." My hands shook as I took the paper, my mind screaming for a way out. The men loomed over me, their shadows stretching across the peeling walls. But there was something else in the room, a hum, low and unnatural, like static in my skull. I glanced at the corner, where the light didn't quite reach, and saw it. A shape, vague and shifting, like smoke curling in the dark. It wasn't one of the men. It was something else, watching, waiting. I don't know what made me do it. Panic, instinct, or that hum pushing me over the edge, but I bolted. I shoved past the leader, my shoulder slamming into his chest, and lunged for the door. The men shouted, their voices a chaotic blur, but I was already out, stumbling down the hallway, the hum louder now, chasing me. I burst into the street, the fog swallowing me as I ran, my lungs burning, my vision swimming. I didn't stop until I reached a gas station, its neon sign a beacon in the mist. I begged the clerk to let me use the phone, called 911, and spilled everything. The bar, Mia, the men, the photos. The police picked me up, took my statement, and drove me to the apartment. It was empty, the room stripped bare, no sign of Mia or the men. "Probably a setup," the officer said, his tone dismissive. "Happens a lot in this part of town." I moved back to campus, deleted Tinder, and avoided the anchor, but the hum followed me, faint but persistent, in quiet moments. I found an article later, buried in an old crime blog, about that building. A history of scams, disappearances, and strange reports of shadows that moved on their own. Locals swore it was cursed, built on the site of an old warehouse fire that killed a dozen workers, their screams still echoing in the walls. Sometimes, when I'm alone, I hear that hum again, and I see that shape in the corner of my eye, waiting, watching, like it's still hunting me. Story 8, The Watcher Beneath the Floor. The apartment was my sanctuary, a cramped one-bedroom in a nondescript Seattle building, its walls painted a sterile white that never felt like home. I was 27, a barista at a hipster coffee shop downtown, trying to piece my life back together after a messy breakup with my boyfriend of 3 years, Ryan. He'd left me for someone else. Someone less complicated, he said. And the sting of those words lingered like a bruise. I'd moved here to start over, to drown the pain in long shifts and late-night Netflix binges. But the nights were the hardest, when the silence of the apartment pressed in, amplifying every creak, every whisper of the city outside. It started with dreams, or nightmares, really. The first one came a week after I moved in, a vivid blur of darkness and dread. I was in my bedroom, but it wasn't my bedroom. The walls pulsed, breathing like a living thing, and the air was thick, sour, like damp earth. A figure crouched at the foot of my bed, its shape indistinct, like a silhouette carved from smoke. Its eyes, or where eyes should have been, glowed faintly, 2 pinpricks of light that burned into me. It didn't move, didn't speak, just watched, its presence a weight on my chest. I woke gasping, my sheets soaked with sweat, the room too dark, too quiet. I brushed it off as stress, the breakup still raw, my mind playing tricks. But the dreams kept coming every few nights, always the same. The figure, the eyes, the suffocating air. Sometimes it was closer, its form sharper, its limbs long and twisted, like branches clawing at the bed frame. I'd wake screaming, my voice hoarse, the apartment unchanged, but somehow wrong. I stopped sleeping with the lights off, kept a lamp burning on my nightstand, its glow a frail shield against the dark. A month in, the nightmares weren't the only thing haunting me. I started noticing small things. Objects out of place, a coffee mug I swore I'd left on the counter now in the sink. My keys moved from the hook to the couch. I blamed exhaustion, my scattered mind, but the unease grew. Then came the noises. At night, when the city quieted, I'd hear it, a soft scratching, like nails dragging across wood, coming from under the bed. I'd freeze, listening, my heart pounding, but when I worked up the courage to look, there was nothing, just dust and a few forgotten socks. One night, I woke from another nightmare. The figure's glowing eyes still burned into my vision. My lamp was off, though I was certain I'd left it on. The room was pitch black, the air heavy, like it had in the dream. The scratching came again, louder, more deliberate, directly beneath me. I held my breath, my body rigid, praying it was a mouse, a pipe, anything normal. But then it stopped, replaced by something worse. A low, guttural hum, like a voice trying to form words but failing. It wasn't coming from under the bed anymore. It was closer, at the edge of the mattress. I lunged for the lamp, my fingers fumbling, and flicked it on. The room flooded with light, empty, ordinary. But my relief was short-lived. On my thigh, just above the knee, were 3 thin scratches, red and raw, like someone had dragged their nails across my skin. I hadn't felt it, hadn't noticed until now. My stomach churned. I tore the sheets off, checked the mattress, the floor. Nothing sharp, nothing that could have caused it. I called my friend Lila the next morning, my voice shaking as I told her about the dreams, the noises, the scratches. She came over, her face skeptical but worried. "You're stressed, Anna," she said, helping me search the apartment. "Maybe it's the breakup, or this place is just creepy." We found nothing, no signs of a break-in, no loose boards, no rodents. She suggested a therapist, but I wasn't ready for that. Instead, I bought a cheap motion sensor light for the bedroom and started sleeping with a baseball bat by my side. The light didn't help. It flickered on one night, triggered by nothing I could see, casting jagged shadows across the walls. The scratching returned, faster, angrier, accompanied by that hum, now almost a whisper, wordless but heavy with intent. I clutched the bat, my eyes fixed on the floor, too terrified to move. Then, a new sound. A creak, slow and deliberate, from the closet across the room. The door was ajar, though I swore I'd closed it. I don't know where I found the strength, but I slid out of bed, bat raised, and crept toward the closet. My bare feet were cold on the hardwood, the hum growing louder, like a swarm in my head. I yanked the door open, the light spilling inside. Empty, just clothes and boxes. But the air was wrong, damp, sour, like the earth in my dreams. I slammed the door shut, my motion light flickering again, plunging the room into darkness for a moment. That's when I heard it, a breath, sharp and wet, from under the bed. My blood froze. I dropped to my knees, flashlight in one hand, bat in the other, and shone the beam under the bed. At first, nothing but dust and shadows. Then, in the far corner, something moved. A hand, pale and skeletal, retreating into the dark. My scream tore through the apartment, raw and desperate. I scrambled back, tripping over the bat, and ran for the front door. I didn't stop to grab my phone or shoes, just ran barefoot into the night, pounding on my neighbor's door until she let me in, her eyes wide with alarm. The police arrived, searched the apartment, their flashlights sweeping every corner. They found nothing, no intruder, no hand, no scratches on the floor. But they did find something else, a loose panel in the bedroom floorboard, hidden under the bed, leading to a narrow crawl space beneath the apartment. It was empty, but the air inside was damp, the walls scratched with faint, irregular marks, like someone had been there, clawing their way through. I moved out the next day, staying with Lila until I could find a new place. The landlord claimed the crawl space was for plumbing, but I didn't believe him. I dug into the building's history and found a chilling story. A former tenant, a woman in her 30s, had reported an intruder years ago, describing noises and scratches like mine. She'd vanished, her case unsolved. Locals whispered about the building, said it was built over an old mining tunnel. Its workers trapped in a collapse, their restless spirits lingering in the dark. The nightmares follow me, less frequent now, but the hum remains, faint in quiet moments. And sometimes, When I wake in the night, I feel a cold breath on my skin, and I know the watcher is still out there, waiting beneath the floor. Story 9. The Toy That Moved in the Night. The house on Long Island was old, a 2-story colonial with creaky floors and drafty windows, nestled in a quiet neighborhood where the streets were lined with maples and the air smelled of salt from the nearby Sound. I was 7 years old, sharing a bedroom with my older brother Ethan, who was 10 and thought he was too cool for me. Our room was a chaos of comic books, action figures, and a plastic train set I'd gotten for my birthday. A bright red locomotive with a string of cars that lit up and played a tinny whistle when you pressed a button. I loved that train, spent hours pushing it along its tracks, imagining it steaming through far-off places. But that summer, the train became something else, something that didn't belong in our world. It started on a muggy July night, the kind where the air clung to your skin and the cicadas screamed outside. Ethan and I were in bed, the room lit by a single lamp between our twin beds, its glow casting long shadows across the walls. I was half asleep, lulled by the hum of a fan, when a sharp whir jolted me awake. It was the train, its whistle blaring, its lights flashing red and yellow across the room. I sat up, heart pounding, and saw it on the floor, a few feet from its usual spot by the closet. The button wasn't pressed. No one was touching it. "Ethan," I whispered, my voice trembling. He groaned, rolling over. "What, Sammy?" "The train's on," I said, pointing. He squinted, then sat up, his face pale in the flickering light. The train's whistle stopped, but its lights kept flashing, the red locomotive glowing like a tiny ember. "You must have bumped it," he said, but his voice wasn't convincing. He climbed out of bed, crept to the train, and pressed the button to turn it off. The lights died, the room silent again. "Go back to sleep," he muttered, but I saw him glance at the closet, his shoulders tense. The next night it happened again. I woke to the same whir, the train's lights painting the walls in eerie patterns. This time it was closer to my bed, its cars lined up neatly, as if someone had arranged them. Ethan wasn't as quick to dismiss it. "Did you touch it?" he asked, his voice sharp. I shook my head, my throat tight. He unplugged the train's battery pack, tossing it into a drawer. "There, done." But his eyes darted to the window, where the moonlight cast jagged shadows of the maples outside. For a few nights the room was quiet, and I thought it was over. I tried to play with the train during the day, but it felt wrong, its plastic body cold, heavier than I remembered. Ethan avoided it entirely, sticking to his comics. Then one night, I woke to a new sound. Not the whistle, but a low hum, like a voice trying to speak through static. The train was moving, its wheels clicking softly along the floor. No tracks, no batteries, just rolling toward my bed. Its lights were off, but its windows glowed faintly, a sickly green that didn't come from any bulb. I screamed, waking Ethan, who bolted upright. "What the hell?" he yelled, seeing the train halfway across the room. He grabbed a baseball bat from under his bed, his hand shaking, and nudged the train with it. It stopped, the hum fading, but the green glow lingered, pulsing like a heartbeat. "Sammy, get Mom and Dad," he whispered. I ran, my bare feet slapping the cold floor, and pounded on my parents' door. Dad came first, his face groggy but annoyed. "What's going on?" he demanded, following me back to the room. Ethan pointed at the train, still in the middle of the floor, its glow gone now. "It was moving," Ethan said, his voice cracking. "On its own." Dad scoffed, picking up the train and inspecting it. "You kids and your imaginations," he said, but his fingers hesitated as he set it down. Mom, standing in the doorway, looked worried. "Maybe it's broken," she said, her voice uncertain. The next day, Dad took the train to the garage, smashing it with a hammer until it was a pile of plastic shards. He threw the pieces into the trash, his face grim. "No more nonsense," he said. I nodded, but the fear didn't leave. That night, I couldn't sleep, my eyes fixed on the closet where the train had always sat. Around 2 a.m., the hum returned, louder, angrier, coming from the floor itself. I clutched my blanket, too scared to move as the sound grew into a whisper, faint but clear. "Play with me." Ethan heard it too. He grabbed his bat, his face pale, and we ran to our parents' room. This time, they didn't dismiss us. Mom called a friend, a local historian, who came over the next day. She listened to our story, her face serious, and asked about the house's history. Dad admitted he'd bought it cheap, a foreclosure from years ago. The historian dug through records and found something chilling. A family had lived here decades before. Their son, a boy my age, had died in a fire in the attic. His favorite toy, a train set, was found untouched in the ashes, as if it had been spared. The historian suggested a priest, but my parents weren't religious. Instead, we moved out, leaving the house and its secrets behind. Years later, I heard the new owners had torn it down, claiming strange noises and lights in the night. But the hum follows me, faint in quiet moments, and sometimes, in the dark, I see that green glow flickering just beyond my vision, calling me to play. These 9 stories, each a chilling glimpse into the shadows of our world, remind us that fear doesn't always come from the unknown. Sometimes it's the things we see, hear, and feel in the places we call home that haunt us most. From the swimmer lurking in the moonlit pond to the toy train that moved in the night, these tales weave a tapestry of dread, blending the terrors of the human and the supernatural. Were they merely coincidences, tricks of the mind, or something darker, entities that linger just beyond our sight, waiting for the right moment to step into the light? One thing is certain, the line between reality and nightmare is thinner than we think. As you sit in the quiet of your own space tonight, listen closely. That creak in the floor, that whisper in the dark, that fleeting shadow in the corner of your eye. Could it be a memory of these stories, or something closer, watching, waiting? Sleep tight, but keep one eye open. Thanks for joining us on this creepy journey through nightmare ghostly echoes. If these stories creep you out, hit the like button, share with your friends, and subscribe so you never miss a story. Click the bell to stay updated. New horror stories drop every day. Do you have a horror story of your own? Leave a comment. We might feature it. Until next time, stay safe and watch out for shadows.